1 in 4 young adults ages 18 to 24 have a diagnosable mental illness. 1 in 4. That number is huge. That number is screaming for our attention. That number is quite literally our problem and our number, as most of us in this room range between 18 and 24. So what are we going to do about it? Why do we hear words like anxiety and depression thrown around with little resolve and little solution? I'm here today to open that discussion up. I have OCD. To almost all of my friends here at Penn State, that would come as a huge shock. That's because most of my life I lived with it as a dirty little secret, something I was scared others would find out about, but not anymore. Today I'm here to tell you guys my story. At 5 years old, I had seen my fair share of psychiatrists and therapists as my parents brought me from doctor to doctor trying to find answers. I remember from a very young age seeing pure fear in my parents' eyes as they worried about what was going on with their young daughter. Finally, we heard that I had obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, first of all, I just want to clear up misconceptions from the beginning. A lot of people think OCD is just about keeping things clean and organized, but to everyone who knows me and is close to me, that's definitely not how OCD hits me. A big thing about mental health is that mental illness will hit you where you're at. So for different people, there are different triggers. For me, at a very young age, my trigger, as they called it, was violence. I was quite literally scared to death about death. I had thoughts running in my mind day in and day out about violence and blood and death of myself and the death of my loved ones. And these are thoughts that no one should think, and especially not a 5-year-old little girl. Now, luckily enough, I learned techniques that really helped me boss back those thoughts in my head and realize how silly they were. And for a while, my mental health seemed to be totally out of the picture. I thought I was done, I had fought the fight, and it was something that was in my past. In high school, it was actually, felt like it was a distant ghost, something that I had done in an earlier life. But unfortunately, I was naive to think that. Driving back to college after 2 completely amazing years as a Penn Stater, I remember coming up for my junior year with an undescribable fear. My whole body just felt just like it had felt when I was so anxious about my OCD back when I was younger, and it scared me. It really scared me. I remember my parents drove away, and I had an unexplainable panic attack. This anxiety hit me so hard and so fast out of nowhere that it was really hard for me to control. I remember when I finally pulled myself together a little bit later, I prayed that this would be a one-time thing, that this wasn't something I was going to have to battle again, this wasn't something that was going to control my life or dictate what I did again. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. The next few weeks walking around campus, I felt like there was a big black cloud over me. A fight with a friend, a breakup from a bad relationship, and my world felt like it was crumbling down. Now, I had great friends at school, and I'm so lucky for that, and I would talk to them about it. But something about mental illness in general is that it's very hard to relate to if you haven't been through it yourself. And that's not something that you can blame anyone for, that's just kind of how it is. So I remember my mom calling me about 2 weeks into this whole phase of anxiety that I was going through, and she said, you know what, I had Googled how you can get help at school, and I came up with CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services. And she urged me to go. I know my parents were so worried about me in that time, and it was hard they weren't with me. But in that moment, I promised her as well that I was going to get help, because as much as they wanted it for me, I wanted it for myself. I didn't want this to dictate my life. Now, I have a feeling that you may have heard or you might hear about how CAPS is hard to get into as a student. It's a big process, and they might be underfunded. But I'm here just to tell you my experience as a student, and it was nothing but positive. CAPS met me where I was as a college student, someone that was busy, constantly running around, and they made it convenient for me to go in and get help. They taught me techniques like jogging, didn't usually do that before, journaling, just different things that I could do as a student. They really met me where I was at this place in my life and helped me because I needed different techniques than when I was 5 years old. I later learned that mental illness pops up. It's part of your life. It's not something that you fight once and you're done with. For me, my OCD had morphed into a vicious cycle of anxiety and depression. I'd be so anxious, I would get depressed, and then depressed, so I would be anxious. It was really tough, but I'm here to say that CAPS really helped me with all of that. And so this is where we all come in, because I said at the very beginning of this that this problem is literally our problem as a university. So how do we step up to the plate and have a united front against mental illness? Well, my initiative is a peer-to-peer mentorship program that would match students that might be going into the CAPS program with students that have been through it already. Now, I remember the first time I rode the elevator up to the 5th floor, which is where CAPS is. I was shaking, nervous, anxious. And I had a lot of questions. But now on the other end of it, I would love to answer someone else's questions. I would love to be that resource for them when they need it most. And group therapy, that's great, and you can talk to your friends, but I think this really brings the best of both. You would have a very individualistic experience about it all, and I think that would be great to provide for students. Now, I can't stand up here. I would be completely lying if I said that I don't battle anxiety and mental illness day in and day out. But I'm proud of where it's brought me. I know I'm a stronger person because of it. I know that I have learned a lot more about myself in the last few years than I ever would have imagined. Next week, I'll be dancing in THON, and in a few more months, I'll be going to law school, and these are things that would have mortified me if I was where I was last year. They would have completely freaked me out, but now I stand excited for the challenges that are ahead, and I just want that to happen for other students here, because my story is just one, and as I said before, 1 in 4. 1 in 4 is a huge number. My story is not the only story by any means. So 1 in 4 just can't be ignored any longer. Thank you guys so much.